Welcome to episode 29 of Pulse of Physiology. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Davis, and today we're exploring the complex world of skeletal muscle metabolism. Muscles need ATP to contract, and skeletal muscle cells are uniquely adapted to generate energy efficiently under different conditions. In this episode, we'll break down the primary sources of ATP, the factors contributing to muscle fatigue, and how skeletal muscle metabolism compares to both cardiac and smooth muscle metabolism. So let's just get started. Skeletal muscles rely on three primary energy systems to generate ATP. Each has different roles in supporting contraction. So there's the creatine phosphate system, also referred to as the phosphagen system. Creatine phosphate serves as a quick source of ATP, especially for short bursts of intense activity. The enzyme creatine kinase catalyzes the transfer of a phosphate group from creatine phosphate to ADP, forming ATP. This system does not require oxygen and provides energy for approximately 10 seconds before being depleted. This system is essential for activities like sprinting for a short distance or a maximal weight lift. Then we have glycolysis, also referred to as anaerobic metabolism. Now, in the absence of oxygen, glucose is broken down into pyruvate, generating a small amount of ATP. Now, if oxygen is not available, pyruvate is then converted into lactate, which is correlated with muscle fatigue. Glycolysis provides short-term energy, think 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and is useful in moderate intensity activities such as a 400-meter sprint, although many of you might not think that a 400-meter sprint is moderate intensity. Finally, we have oxidative phosphorylation, or aerobic metabolism. If oxygen is present, that pyruvate that was formed during glycolysis enters the Krebs cycle, which is also known as the citric acid cycle, and electrons pass through the electron transport chain, producing large amounts of ATP. This process occurs in the mitochondria and is the most efficient method of ATP production. It provides long-term energy, making it the primary energy source for endurance exercise like running a marathon. And if you have more questions about how this works, I would suggest you go back to our cellular respiration podcast. Now, this leads us to fatigue. Now, fatigue occurs when muscles fail to maintain a required power output, which ultimately affects performance. Fatigue is generally categorized into two types: central fatigue, which originates in the nervous system, and peripheral fatigue, which originates in the muscle. Central fatigue results from changes in the brain or spinal cord that reduce the neural drive to muscles. Possible causes include, but are not limited to, reduced acetylcholine release, altered motor neuron excitability, or psychological factors like mental stress. Central fatigue is common in prolonged endurance activities. I experience central fatigue when I've gone and trained for marathons. I can run when I'm trained for 2 hours, no problem, but as soon as I hit like 2 hours and 1 minute, I'm done, and it's kind of a mental thing. Okay, peripheral fatigue. This occurs due to changes within the muscle itself or in motor nerve control. Contributing factors include reduced ATP availability, which leads to impaired energy production, accumulation of metabolic byproducts such as hydrogen ions, which interfere with calcium release and troponin binding. Peripheral fatigue is more prominent in high-intensity anaerobic activities like weightlifting or sprinting. Now, there are different types of muscle cells, and they rely on different types of metabolism. And so different muscle types vary in their energy metabolism and ultimately fatigue resistance. So you've got skeletal muscle, which can function under both anaerobic and aerobic conditions. They produce a large amount of ATP during aerobic metabolism. Fatigue resistance depends on fiber type, which we talked about in our previous episode. Type 1 fibers are more resistant due to their high mitochondrial and myoglobin content. Cardiac muscle is also highly resistant to fatigue, which is a very good thing, and this is also due to an abundance of mitochondria and myoglobin. Cardiac muscle relies almost entirely on aerobic metabolism, which means it requires a constant supply of oxygen. But as a result, cardiac muscle does not function well under anaerobic conditions, making it highly dependent on continuous blood flow. Smooth muscle, on the other hand, is moderately resistant to fatigue, which allows for long-lasting contractions. Smooth muscle contractions are not very strong, but they last for a long period of time. Smooth muscle contains fewer mitochondria than cardiac muscle, but still relies on aerobic metabolism to some extent. Smooth muscle also generates less ATP than either skeletal or cardiac muscle, which aligns with its slower contraction speed and sustained function. For example, its job, or one of its jobs, might be to regulate blood vessel diameter. So let's summarize with 3 key takeaways. Skeletal muscle generates ATP through 3 primary pathways: the creatine phosphate system, glycolysis, and oxidative phosphorylation. Muscle fatigue is classified as central fatigue, which originates in the nervous system, and peripheral fatigue, which results from metabolic changes in the muscle. Skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle have distinct metabolic profiles, with cardiac muscle being the most resistant to fatigue due to its reliance on aerobic metabolism. And so with that, we're done with episode 29 of Pulse of Physiology. I hope this episode has deepened your understanding of skeletal muscle metabolism and how muscles generate the energy needed for contraction. Join me next time for episode 30, where we'll focus on skeletal muscle contraction and the mechanics of force production. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious.